G'day and welcome to another quick edition of the Aussie Ideas Man. Though I don't think it'll be that quick because I've tied two of the cretin's latest videos together to do with that, I don't know what it was, some meeting. But anyway, I've tied two together and I've just decided to make this some of the things that he doesn't tell you when he rehearses his age-old snake oil guff. That's Chris, that is. The good thing about the cretin Steve is that all he does is introduce it, so there's no guessing and there's no irrelevant stuff like bicycle tests and electricity supplies in southern hemispheres and all the other nonsense that he comes up with when he's got nothing to report. Anyway, let's get into it. What I'll do is stop and make comments as I go, like I've done before, and if I think something's important, I'll put them in the space to the right in text, but I think I'll still be leaving out much of what is left out that fanboys really need to know. They are fed one side of the coin, and the other side, they hide it with a passion. So my attempt at making videos is not just for the practice of making videos, but to reveal the hidden stuff, to give people full disclosure of what they're getting into. So here we go.
Hi everyone, it's Steve with APTERA Owners Club. This weekend, APTERA hosted the EVA annual meeting, and several of our club members were able to go, and many of them provided footage. Most of this footage is courtesy of Milson. Thank you very much, Milson. And this video will be the keynote address by Chris Anthony. There will be another video with the Q&A session, so stay tuned for that.
Vehicle Association, and it's great to have everybody here to celebrate not just the successes of EVs over the last 10 years, but also some of our progress as we push towards production. I was going to give you a little intro to APTERA. I'm sure there's probably a lot of questions, so we'll save most of the time for questions, but we also have some hand around so you can kind of get a feel for the work we're doing here. For those of you that don't know, probably most of you have at least heard of APTERA. Maybe you don't know what we're all about. But APTERA exists to provide the world the most efficient transportation.
I'll just stop here and say that I made a video, and I'll have to put it down in text because I can't even remember it. It was so long ago. But my video was about how this snake oil salesman has rehearsed stuff since 2019 and maybe since before that. But in the second iteration of APTERA, he's definitely had these things rehearsed. He's practiced and practiced and practiced so that he can say the same things. And I would just admonish people to look up that video, look at the things he says, and look at how similarly he says them again this time around. This is what snake oil salesmen do.
We started with really the math equation of where does energy go in people's day-to-day transportation, and we found that over 60% of your fuel at highway speeds can go to just pushing air out of the way of a typical SUV or sedan. So if you can really optimize your vehicle for aerodynamics, you're going to get much better fuel economy. The second biggest loss is weight. It takes energy to deform your tire in every rotation. So if you can have a lightweight vehicle, even better. And the last is really the efficiency of your powertrain. So combustion engines, we all know, are garbage when it comes to converting energy into power to your wheels. You only get like 25% of the energy out of the gasoline you burn to your wheels. So it's a shame to go through all that effort to dig up dinosaur bones and compressed biomatter that could be so useful in plastics and other areas, and just burn it in combustion engines and let it go off into the sky, never to be retrieved again. Electric motors, obviously much more efficient. We take that to the next realm. Typical EVs get maybe 80% of their power from the wall to the wheels. We get closer to 90%. So you put all that together, and you get something that looks more like a fish than a box truck, and something that gets extreme efficiency. And because everybody here knows the vernacular,
Okay. Even earlier, I made a video that refuted all of this nonsense that he puts with regard to the efficiency of fossil fuels and comparing that with the efficiency of electric motors. It's hogwash. If you look deeper into it, you'll find that there's hardly any difference between the two. Overall, EVs might be a little more efficient, but he's not doing anything to save the world with the APTERA. Just go out and buy an EV that's real if you want to play your part.
It's less than 100 watt hours per mile. So, it's When compared to a Hummer EV, we're burning a sixth of the energy per mile. And when it's compared to some of you eco-milers out here, it's a third to half of what you guys are using on the best day out in the world. We wanted to show you a little bit about how the vehicle is coming together from an architecture perspective and engineering perspective. We've been doing a lot of this work in Italy. It's our carbon fiber SMC chassis, how the parts come together. An interesting thing is we only use 6 major parts for a body structure. So there's a tub, there's a top, there's 2 sides, and some liner pieces, and that's the whole body structure for this vehicle. When we last tested this vehicle through FMVSS crash test, we had the highest roof crush strength of any passenger car on the road.
That's one that needs refuting again and again, and I've done it many times. He should have had the sense to learn, not to keep saying it. The roof crush test that he did was on his resin-infused body back before they folded in 2011. They haven't done another roof crush test since, and now that they're using this toothpaste-like carbon fibre, which isn't as strong as the normal carbon fibre, that is a really weak roof. It's nowhere near the highest of any passenger vehicle at all. And that's why they put a roll cage, a steel roll cage, in this new design. This PI, and if ever you get a production vehicle, you will have to have a roll cage in it. You'll have to have a steel roll cage. It isn't that good a roof crush test. And there's all this nonsense about it being shaped like an egg. Eggs don't have doors in them. And as soon as you put a hole in an egg, it's no longer strong. The reason why an egg's strong is because there's no opening in it at all. APTERA has to have doors.
And it's only gotten better with our work in Italy. So it's a fabulous piece of engineering to see all these things come together. And this, what you see on the screen, will arrive here in just a couple months so we can finish up our first production intent builds and be able to drive people around in what is a fabulous new entry into the Electric Vehicle Association. This is the actual shop in Italy, an amazing place where some of the world's most premier supercars are made. I don't want to rattle off the names, but if you've seen something pretty in a magazine that goes fast, it probably went, at least part of it, through one of CPC's shops in Italy.
He doesn't tell you that it's not the whole car that's made. I think they tried it with one reincarnation of a Lamborghini, where I think most of the body was made at CPC. Other than that, parts for cars like Ferrari, McLaren, you name it, the supercars, they're just limited to front air dams and rear spoilers and a few lightweight parts. It might be the engine cover or something like that, but very little compared to what the car is really made of. They rant and rave and overemphasize everything to make you impressed.
The carbon fiber SMC that we use is a very interesting material. It's stamp pressed. Imagine like a waffle iron that you put in a glob of thermoset resin and carbon fiber into, and then you close the waffle iron, and you wait 8 minutes, and when you open the waffle iron, you've got a beautiful APTERA part. That's essentially how these parts are made. But they're carbon fiber, they're super strong, and this material is used in a lot of pretty amazing supercars, so it's really cool to see our vehicle going with that. This is what it looks like. And we'll hand it around so everybody can touch and feel and see what carbon fiber SMC goodness is. We had a very hand-laid process, so people would have to hand-lay composite material in a mold, and it took a long time. And I had a boat company, we built a lot of boats, but it took a lot of space and a lot of people. So, we have over 46,000 orders for the APTERA now. So we need to build them in mass. People haven't even seen a production vehicle yet, so we're sure that our orders will take off once we have a production vehicle. So we couldn't do something that's going to take hundreds and hundreds and thousands of square feet. We can make up to 100,000 APTERA a year in about 30,000 square feet of space over in Italy. So it's really space constrained, and that's with 6 operators. So 6 people managing a whole plant, making body structures for 100,000 vehicles a year. So it's much different than my boat plant where we had hundreds of people and hundreds of thousands of square feet.
His boat plant has hundreds of thousands of square feet. I'm going to have to check that.
These are some of the beautiful parts the guys we're putting together. This was over a month ago. We've come a long way since then, and we've actually finished almost all of the tooling for the vehicle there now. I also recently got back from a trip to Korea. But we just signed a battery arrangement with a company called CT&S there, and they will be building the robotics line to have a fully automated battery pack line in Korea, where we'll build our first couple hundred battery packs, and then we'll ship all that equipment here to the US, and then we'll be building battery packs right here in Carlsbad, California. That's the same game we're playing with CPC. We want to build the body parts in Italy to start, and then we want to bring that equipment over to the US so we can have jobs here in the US to build those things, and so we can have the parts located closer so we don't get caught in a long supply chain way overseas. CT&S built some of our first battery modules. This is an example of one of the battery modules flipped upside down. This is right side up. Our battery modules are cooled by base plate cooling. We use 2170 cells, which we'll pass around too. These are the cells. If you drove a Tesla Model Y or a Model 3 here, likely it has a 2170 NMC cell in here. It's a lot like a AA battery, only fatter. But that's what we populate our modules with, and it takes 6 of these modules to make one APTERA battery pack.
How many cells are in a module?
Good question. There's 2,900 in the whole pack. The math is above me to divide it by 6, but 500 cells or so. Okay. But if you haven't ever held a cell that's in your Tesla, this is what they are. In your Tesla, they have like 3 times as many cells as we do, but about 9,000, 10,000 cells in a Tesla pack. So a great thing, we've been working with Sandy Monroe and Monroe and Associates to really optimize our pack and all of our manufacturing. But they advised us, don't design 4 distinct packs for your 250 mile, 400 mile, 600 mile, 1,000 mile. Design one pack, and then if you can use a different size cell for those packs, it makes everything much easier. So we use a 70 millimeter tall cell here for the 400 mile range version. We just take some of the cells out for the 250 mile range version. And for the 600 and 1,000 mile range version, we use taller cells.
He doesn't tell you that the 120 millimeter cells he doesn't have any of, and the odds of getting them are absolutely remote. Nor does he tell you that they probably won't work being so tall, because they can't dissipate the heat generated in the center of a tall cell using a bottom plate. And by the way, that bottom plate, he hasn't told you what cools it, because there's no radiator whatsoever. And he doesn't tell you that. He just says a bottom plate will cool the batteries. It has no means to keep cool itself. And that is something that they've known since day one, since they devised this scheme in 2005. They have known that they have no proper means to cool the batteries.
So the cells that are going around are 70 millimeters tall. We go to a 90 millimeter tall and then 120 millimeter tall cell. And that means we can use all the same cell brackets, we can use the same power busing, we can use the same PDU, we can use the same case structure. Everything gets harmonized and gets much, much easier to build in volume. You'll see over here an old current collector, but this is our new strategy. It's actually laser welded to the battery cells, and the laser is super, super quick. The problem with some of the early Tesla packs is they were wire bonded, and it takes the machine time to drop a wire, lift it, make a loop, drop the wire again, and weld it on. So this laser stuff is just, it's super, super quick. So you can bond this whole module in less than a minute, whereas it used to take 6.
It's amazing that he can break down that the body shell and the batteries and all these different components are super quick to make. Yet they devised the idea in 2005 and it's now 2024, 19 years later. And for something that they're trying to make super quick to make in every aspect, it's super slow to make.
A little description on kind of how we're evolving here. In Italy, we're building our body structure. We're building the frame that's under the body structure that holds our suspension. The APTERA is really built from the battery out. So the battery is the heaviest part of the vehicle. We use a structural battery that then holds the front and rear suspension, and then we put our pretty beautiful carbon fiber body structure on top of that. That work for the frame and the body will happen in Italy to start, and they will ship those over to us probably as full rollers, with wheels. So once it gets here, we'll be able to put the battery pack in, the solar on, install some of our point of use controllers, which is our digital I/O system around the vehicle, and obviously our control systems, software, center screen and stuff. In Korea is where we'll build our initial battery packs, and those will be shipped here. But eventually those battery packs will be the key here. The battery packs will come off the line. It's the heaviest unit. Then that is really the first station of our assembly. So station 1 is battery pack. Battery pack goes in frame. Station 2, body goes on the vehicle after that, and then you just build up the rest of the vehicle.
Are the Alafi wheels headed in Italy?
The Alafi wheels are in Slovenia, which is pretty close to Italy. So it's only a 4-hour drive, so they can put them on a lorry, what they call trucks over there, and drive it over to Italy, where this vehicle can be produced. I wanted to leave a good amount of time for questions, but I also wanted to give you a little tour of the shop from your seats. A big group is hard to manage on tours. But this is an 80,000 square foot facility. It's capable of building about 20,000 vehicles a year. The current line that you'll see animated on that show over there is a 12 station assembly. And this blue line that you see running under the seats and then around the building, that's the actual vehicle assembly line. So there's 12 stations. The takt time is 12 minutes each. We can produce about 40 APTERA a day per shift on those lines.
8-hour shifts.
8-hour shifts, yes, sir. So if we were to bump that to 2 shifts, we can get about 20,000 vehicles out the door per year out of here. On the shop floor, on this side over here, you'll see most of our solar assembly. So we have the equipment to produce about 10 panels a day right now. You'll be able to kind of see the different forming equipment and then the different test equipment further down. We test for temperature, we test for breakage. We have a big steel ball we drop on stuff. We have an ice gun that shoots ice at 90 miles an hour, so got to pass an ice test.
Yeah, the reason why they're getting a view of the factory from their seats is because if you took a close look at the factory, like Ginger did, Drew from Talos of EV, even though he was sort of numb between the ears and didn't pick up on anything, but if you walk around the factory, you don't see anything that produces anything. You see things that test little things. You see tables with displays of things that are supposed to be made, but nothing that actually makes anything. It's not there. Nor do you see the supplies. They need seats. They need seat belts. They need just about anything. They need supplies, and they don't have a stockpile of supplies. Also, as he says he's got the size to do this, I'll jot down some points that a guy called, I think it's a Drumanac or something like that, has put in a comment already that says that this place is unsuitable for making EVs at all, not just because of size, but of other reasons. I'll put them on the right if I can. Also, I'll be chopping out a lot of the stuff. There'll be stuff chopped out already, but I'll just continue to chop out a lot because time does not permit me to include everything.
All that fun stuff. We're really proud of our solar, and I'll pass these around as some show and tell. But these are some coupons of our solar testing here. But this came off of the forming equipment here, and this is what produces this amazing glass solar panel. And you wouldn't think, that this is glass, but it is. And it's a lot like the glass on your cell phone. It's super, super tough, super scratch resistant, but surprisingly flexible. That means it's also very lightweight, but you can hold it up by just one hand, one finger, if I could balance more properly like a basketball star. But
somebody needs to check to see if there's any technology that does this, because these people have lied so much in the past that I wouldn't put it past them to have a plastic that they're passing off as glass. We need to find out if technology has got to the stage where glass can do this. As far as I know, Chris is the only person in the world that says this, and I wouldn't believe Chris as far as I could throw him.
But we've made amazing progress on this, and obviously one of the biggest benefits of having the most efficient vehicle platform ever is that you can add very little solar to it and still get very useful charge range out of it. So we add 192 solar cells onto the body surface of our vehicle. That gets you about 700 watts of charging power in optimal sun. And in Southern California, you can get over 40 miles a day of free power just from the amazing nuclear generator in the sky that we have here.
I've just made a video about a man who had a Tesla and drove it from New York to LA on portable solar panels. He had 68 of them that had this same 700 watts that APTERA is supposed to have. And after a few different calculations of very different results, the last one I made was that if it was a third as efficient or 3 times more efficient than a Tesla, it would only get something like 14 miles per day, judging by what the Tesla got with 68 700 watt panels. So check that out.
Completely free. And in total, in California, Southern California, you can get about 11,000 miles a year of free driving. No need to plug it in, no need to pay your power bill. All you have to do is trust that the sun is going to come up every day and provide you with that power. In more dreary places like Seattle, New York, Boston, you still get like 8,000, 8,500 miles a year of free driving. So in a world today where I see many articles of people spending over $5,000 a year on gasoline, this thing is a pretty sweet deal at $26,000.
Okay, so he's pointing to a $26,000 APTERA to say that it gets those miles. The problem is that $26,000 APTERA doesn't get, I think, somewhere like a quarter of those miles, because you don't get the full solar that the mileage is calculated on. You get, I think, just the roof and the dash. You don't get the large rear hatch, and you don't get the front bonnet or hood or whatever they call it in America. So there he's deceiving you. He's lying. He's saying $26,000 will get you that 40 miles per day, but it's impossible. He's mixing up one vehicle with another. If you want the 40 miles per day false promise, then you need to spend $38,000 according to Steve Fambro in his last interview when he was asked what price it was.
To not have a fuel bill ever again. It's also a really cool adventure vehicle. This is the first vehicle that you can take on an adventure, and it actually creates its own fuel when you're out adventuring. Imagine taking a camping trip, driving 200 miles away, camping for a week, and coming back with more power than you had in your APTERA than you left with. On the other side of the solar line will be our battery equipment, and you see in the back area there, that's really our R&D test driving. That's how we're validating the vehicles out there. But that's kind of a general tour of the space and a general intro of APTERA. But we're so pleased to have everyone here, and in a world that now has the Tesla Model Y as the best-selling vehicle in the world. There's no better time to be in the Electric Vehicle Association, and there's no better time to be in this great space we call, clean tech, green tech, clean vehicles. So, we're happy to press the limits and go above and beyond where Tesla and other electric vehicles are going. But
I actually doubt whether the Tesla Model Y is the best-selling vehicle in the world. Might be the best-selling EV for a little while, but I think the BYD has a model that has just surpassed it. But more than that, he's eliminating the fact that certain things like the Toyota Hilux or the Ford Ranger sell in massive numbers. They're not EVs, but he didn't say EVs, he said vehicle. And there are vehicles that sell in massive numbers. There are tuk-tuks in Asia and India. Are they called tuk-tuks? Tuk-tuks? Something like that. They sell in massive numbers. So he deceives people with what are lying stats. He talks so fast that it just bamboozles people. They can't stop to think. They can't go, "Oh, is this man lying to me?" No, so they just trust him. That's what gullibility is all about. Trusting somebody when you can't validate what they've said. I was a soldier more than 50 years ago, and we had a saying. It was, BS baffles brains. And I believe Chris actually knows all about that.
It's a unique story, and I'm happy to answer any of your individual questions as I'm around, but maybe we'll open it up and you guys can ask any questions about the facility or the company or whatever you want for maybe 10 minutes. I don't know, how far can we go over the schedule? Yes, sir.
Thanks for opening up.
Thanks.
I have a safety question. My wife wants me to wheel all the time.
Okay.
How or where are the crash forces distributed across the vehicle?
So we have a big crumple zone in the front. We actually have over 650 millimeters of crushable space in the front of the vehicle. To get a 5-star crash rating in the U.S., you need about 550 millimeters of crushable space. We actually had the highest roof crush strength of any passenger car on the road when we last tested it, so rollover strength is great. We got a big boxed out section by your H point, most side.
He's repeated the highest roof crash test again, and this time he's talking about the gamma or even the PI. So this time he's just lying.
Impact injuries come at your hip, so we did an extra job protecting that, and obviously expect to do really well on the full frontal and offset frontal crash test. The offset frontal, in particular, basically is a glancing blow that.
Just going back to the side impact, they aren't using side airbags. He doesn't tell you that. Side airbags are far better than any internal bars you can put in a door.
It kind of takes the wheel off, so we're very unique in that we have a lot of mass outside of the vehicle where other companies have to account for the mass inside the vehicle. So offset frontal and full frontal crash tests have simulated very well, and the simulations are very good now. So we have gone through all those testing before, but it was with a previous iteration of this vehicle. So the body structure was a good bit different, so we have to retest now, and we probably won't get to that testing until March or April, but we will publish.
That's 5 vehicles that are going to get crash tested?
That's a good question. I think we're down to 4 now. The cool thing is that if you don't obliterate the vehicle in one crash test, you can use it for another crash test. So like the full frontal crash test, we don't think is going to damage the vehicle very much. So then you can actually use it for the side impact too. So
And an independent company, right?
Yeah, an independent third-party company will take it through the test and do all that. It's not cheap, but that's what we'll do.
And how about pedestrian crash?
Yeah, pedestrian crash is mostly in the very pointy nose part of it. Our vehicle is very low. A lot of what happens is the occupant, slams their head against the hood. When you have an engine that's very high in the hood, there's no way for it to crush down, so you bounce off the engine basically. We don't have any of that in the front of our vehicle, so pedestrian safety is quite unique.
More of a glancing blow than.
Well, more of a bouncy blow. Yeah. So instead of hitting something hard, it's like a relatively soft.
Strength and weight question about carbon fibers and handling that little piece that's so powerful.
Yes.
That was all like steel or whatever. How much weight and what's this?
It's about 9 times stronger than steel by weight, but it really is how you design a composite part. Composite parts do good in boxed sections. So really, it's more often about the geometry of the part than the actual material qualities of the part. And historically, automotive companies have tried to shift from aluminum to steel, but they just try to replicate the steel part with some other material, and that's not the way to do it. If you're going to design a carbon fiber vehicle, you have to design the chassis from the ground up, and it has to be very unique for the material properties. The great thing about fibers, you can transmit load from one area to another area of the vehicle. Steel and aluminum, they just deform. So there are benefits to steel and aluminum for sure, but for our chassis, 9 times stronger than steel sounds great.
And to follow up on that quickly, what kind of chemical environmental impact from creating that carbon fiber?
The cool thing about the carbon fibers, there's very little waste. There's less than 0.5% of trimmings when you actually produce the part. There's a little flashing that comes out of the side. Like when you injection mold a part, you like a little slag on the side. So they cut that off, and you can actually recycle that material up to 5 times back into a structural part.
I'll just go back a second and talk about the steel and the carbon fiber. If you read the comments in the Cretin's second video, I think it is, you'll find that carbon fiber causes steel to rust very fast. And they're putting carbon fiber on a steel frame, plus using that steel roll cage. So they've got some work cut out trying to stop the steel from rusting. This is a bad idea unless they can pull a rabbit out of the hat and work out how not to have the steel rust. So now we go on to what he's talking about now, the minimal waste. Okay, his question wasn't about the actual waste in stamping the parts. His question was about the inefficiency of making the parts, and that he doesn't address at all. he's averted the question.
So from an environmental perspective, it's a quality material. You use almost all of it. There's not a lot of recycle. In steel and aluminum and even the old hand-laid composites, the waste can be up to 30% of your material. So, we hate for, any material that goes into the APTERA to be wasted. The cool thing about an APTERA, because it uses so little energy per mile and it's so little weight, what you start with from a transportation device has already impacted the earth much, much less. Our battery pack is a quarter of the average battery pack. A 25 kilowatt hour battery pack is going to get you 250 plus miles of range. So when you do that, you use much less material to create the device, to create your vehicle from the start. You're just starting in a much better place for the environment, and every mile you drive, you're using less energy. So, is there?
In the unlikely horrifying event of a crash, where the VINC parts are smashed up, does APTERA have plans for accepting those parts back for recycling?
Yes. Any of those parts can be decommissioned and put back into the hopper for more parts to be made. Yeah.
Okay, as a potential second owner of the auto cycle, I have several questions. One, like what's happening in Chicago, they couldn't start the Lexus. Is there something that if you happen to be in the mountains one weekend where it snows and you have your APTERA there, is there someone to protect it and keep it warm so that you can start the engine, or would it fail?
Yeah, we use a very similar chemistry to Tesla in our batteries. So, those batteries are still, subject to extreme cold weather difficulties. But the way we heat our batteries, is such that we can precondition the batteries before charging and hopefully prevent any of that cold weather stuff. The great thing about a body structure that's insulative is it's much better to heat and cool the interior of the vehicle. So if you have steel or aluminum, everything's a heat sink around you. Everything, transmits the heat outward or inward. But when you're driving around in basically a thermos, it's much easier to heat and cool the vehicle. So get your battery pack hotter as you can. Yeah.
You're not accepting anybody to be an ambassador for your vehicle before you become an IPO?
We are. Talk to Audra back here. She handles our ambassador program. We have over 1,000 ambassadors now around the world. They're telling our story. They're telling all the great things about us, and they're getting people to invest. We've done the largest crowdfunding in history now. We have over 16,000 investors in APTERA, and average investment is $4,700, and it's amazing to have so many people that have really bought into the idea of solar mobility for all, and it's really cool to see so much support in ambassadors. So please talk to Audrey.
And will this vehicle be available for us politically challenged folks?
Yes, great for short people.
Hey, so Chris, it's great to see you. The last time I saw you at an EVO-ASC meeting was 2008.
Oh.
After you explained the Paul Wilbur debacle.
Yes, sir.
A very drastic debacle. Very disappointing. So when you guys came back to life, it was fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
I applaud you because that was so dramatic, and it's so exciting to be in this building after all that. So having gone through all that, where you are now, how do you feel? I mean, how's your outlook now?
Oh, I mean,
After this one, I started to realize that a lot of these questions are pre-planned. He's sat people in a room and told them that they need to ask this question. I'll have this answer for them. And now I don't know how many of the last lot of questions are from people in that room that he's pre-planned with.
Thank you for the kind words. It's humbling, but it has been a long road for APTERA. For those of you that don't know, we had APTERA back in 2005, 2006. We had a good bit of fanfare, but I ended up leaving the company, and the company ended up liquidating in 2011. So it wasn't until 2019 that Steve and I were able to reacquire the company and restart APTERA. But now we have control of the cap table, so we don't have to worry about anything APTERA. So Steve and I make the decisions for the future of the company, and it feels so great to have inspired. We have over 1 million people on social media following us now. We have 110,000 people on our newsletter list. The groundswell of support is just amazing, and I think it's because we started from a very virtuous place. We think the world can be a better place through cleaner, greener transportation, and we're trying to just lead the charge. So thank you. Yes, sir.
Could you comment on development or production of the chassis itself?
Yeah, in Italy, they're used to making these crazy carbon fiber unibody chassis. We consider it a monocoque chassis, much more like an aircraft. A Cirrus aircraft is a monocoque structure. But they have lots of great forging capabilities in Italy too. So forging a lot of the pieces for the frame and the suspension and all that's going to happen in Italy, and then come to us basically as one unit. A rolling chassis is what they call it. But basically, the body structure, the glazing, which is the glass, the doors, the seals, the hinges, the suspension, the wheels, and then we'll get it here in that form, and they have to put in the battery pack and put on the solar and put in the electronics. That's the name of the game, is get that whole body structure from Italy and then bring it here and assemble the rest of the vehicle. Yes, sir.
You mentioned earlier preconditioning for the battery. Are you guys going to have some system in place for like route planning? So like,
Oh yeah.
from charger to charger?
Yep, most certainly.
So the precondition will be automatic.
The precondition will be automatic if you select a charging point, yes. Or you can do it from the app. We do hope to have an app in probably a couple months, but we're going to unveil the app first so we can get a lot of people testing the app. You can download it on your phone. You can have a virtual vehicle that you can go to. You don't have your vehicle yet, but hopefully get a lot of feedback from that. But.
Yeah, on repairability, insurance rates are high on Teslas because of their habit of getting totaled.
Yep.
Relatively minor accidents. Is that going to be addressed both with the insurance industry and in the service centers?
It's a great question, kind of a softball. We're a right to repair company, so years ago people got really mad at Apple because you can't replace the battery in your phone. Then it became apparent, like, hold on, I buy these things, but I don't really control the long-term future of these things. I can't change my battery, I can't do anything. We are not those guys. We are a right to repair company, which means that when you buy an APTERA, we give you all the information and parts resources you need to keep that APTERA on the road. So if you call us, we're going to send you a part within 24 hours of you needing one, and we're going to give you the information on how to fix it. So if you're in the middle of Australia and you're not anywhere close to an APTERA service facility, you can still go to a local mechanic or a local service shop, or you can do the repair yourself, which I've had problems with my Tesla. Hope that answers the question. Long-winded answer to you, but yes, this is considered a motorcycle. So 3 wheels in America gets you in the HOV lane for free, and it's classified as a motorcycle. So we get to use this really small plate in the back. But because it has 3 wheels, you don't have to have a motorcycle's license, and because it has something over your head, you don't have to wear a helmet.
So you talked about how the body manufacturing and the battery assembly is coming to the U.S. I think you mentioned some time ago that Alafe also might be coming to the U.S. Can you?
Yeah, Alafe makes our in-wheel motors. They're built in Slovenia now. They have amazing technologies. We also have a plan to build those motors here in the U.S. too. It's a little simpler than a lot of the other stuff we're seeing as a challenge, but they're from that green pole to that green pole, we can build 20,000 motors a year. So it's not a lot of space to build those. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So practical question: if you get a flat in the back, how do you change it?
The side panel of the rear wheel skirt comes off, so you can change the rear tire. And these front guys, they actually flip up like Lamborghini doors, so you can get to those tires. So if you have to put air in them, or if you have to change the whole tire, you just flip that outside cover. The cool thing about the front wheel pants is these front and rear parts are fungible. They're foam, so you can take them off if you want to go off-roading. But also, if you damage them, they're only $30 parts. So there's something that you can upgrade over time. You could probably make them pink or whatever too if you wanted to add some accents. Yes, sir.
How will wheel alignment work? Is it something that will just be in a service?
Yeah, a typical wheel alignment shop can do the wheel alignment. It's adjusted, typical tie rod, just like older vehicles. But there will be some special instructions on how to set the rear wheel. So if you go to a 4-wheel shop, they already know where to set the rear wheel side to side. You're going to take this to somebody and be like, "What did Sam Hale?" So yeah, there's instructions on how to do that.
Will it take tire cables if you're going over the Sierra?
Well, yeah.
Will the horsepower vary with the battery pack size, and also what about 48 volts?
Yes, the battery pack size does make the vehicle behave a little different. The heavier battery packs aren't as quick, 0 to 60, those types of things. We have to have different spring rates and stuff for the bigger battery packs. So it's not a different horsepower, but it is a different feel for the vehicle, if that makes sense. We don't change the drivetrain for the bigger battery packs. You just get the bigger battery pack. So you get more range, but a little less performance. He also has about a 48 volt system. Tesla's done a really cool thing. They've introduced a 48 volt power bus to their low voltage side that reduces the copper in your system, which is great. We've already gone to a point of use controller system. So we have little control boards all over the vehicle. So our wiring harness only consists of a power, ground, and communication wire. So we already have wiring harnesses that's 30% of the weight of a typical EV wiring harness on the low voltage side. So the bang for our buck to go to 48 volts isn't as much. And Elon has lots of cash, so he can pay to develop 48 volt devices, but there's not a supply chain for 48 volt devices right now. So we can't go out to a supplier and say, hey, you got a 48 volt thing? They're like, no, piss off. Or pay us a lot of money to develop it. So we're not in the 48 volt game, but we hope that the industry goes there, and then one day we can be there. Way in the back, sorry to be ignoring people, but
Can you talk a little bit about your current thinking about temperature management of the battery in the cabin? And do you do temperature management of the battery while the vehicle is off?
we do cold management when the battery's off. So if it's a really cold day, we'll keep the battery pack above freezing. Obviously, you don't want to use too much power to do that. Our battery system is adiabatic, so we try to use as little heat as possible to just keep it above freezing. But we have systems in place to manage that. And in the interior, you can precondition it with your app. So if it's a cold day, you can warm it up before you get in the vehicle.
What about in hot temperatures where you need the battery cool?
Our particular batteries don't seem to have a problem with the heat, at least the heat on Earth. If we end up in Mars, then maybe it's a different equation. But the typical temperatures that you see, hot tarmac up to 170 degrees, our particular chemistry and the way we design our battery pack, 170 degrees is no problem. So.
You mentioned the statistic of 6 people for 100,000 parts in Italy, which is pretty jaw-dropping statistic for manufacturing. So to actually put the car together here, how many people are actually in the assembly line, and how does that compare to current?
He was asking about building the vehicle here. How many people does it take here to build 20,000 vehicles a year? And it's about 30 people on the assembly line and about 50 people managing inventory and, actually putting them on trucks and stuff like that.
How does that compare with current manufacturing?
We're probably about a fifth of the manpower of another 20,000 vehicle a year shop. One more question. It's got to be a good one. Who's got the best question?
A fifth of the manpower. They need 80, divide 80 by 5, and they've got about 16 people. They're not ready. At least that was something he did tell them.
This guy, all right.
So currently you don't qualify for the $7,500 tax credit. So some of us have started a letter writing campaign. We've written our Congress people, we've written the Congress members who sit on the SCDC. Besides writing those letters, what else can we do to help APTERA earn the $7,500 tax credit?
Oh, thank you so much for the question. I would love for the APTERA to exist in a regime where we could get the $7,500 federal tax credit. We are 3 wheels. We're considered a motorcycle, so we are outside of that regime. The state of California still has some cool incentives. There's even cooler incentives up in Oregon. But yeah, if you have connections to political representatives or anyone in your community that might have influence, please share our story. The more APTERA followers and fans we have, the better our life is going to be. But, you can never overestimate our government's ability to fail on making the world a better place. Politicians aren't in the game for long-term strategies, and we're in it for the long term. I want my grandkids to inherit a better planet, and this is a way to do it. So yes, if you have any influence, please spread the word. But I appreciate everybody's time and hearing and learning about APTERA. Our website is aptera.us, so if you want to hit that up to see what we're all about. Let me know if you guys, I'm sure we have an EV Association code, so you guys can get 30% off of your pre-order if you want to pre-order. But I'm so happy to host you guys, and I know you'll have a fabulous day with us. So if you see me around, feel free to ask me any questions that you guys have. But thank you so much.
I got to admit I didn't interrupt too often because the guy was putting me to sleep. So I'll put more things in the text, I suppose, if I can muster up the motivation. Well, whatever you get, that's all from me. Till next time, bye for now. Stay safe.